A Lantern, Chapter 35. Abby was back in her bedroom and dressed now for the wedding, in the lavender silk with the lace collar from Vienna. Margaret had dressed her hair and Isabel had manicured her nails, and Grace had powdered her skin. With Abby a little uncertain of the outcome, as though, in her excitement, Grace might have purchased gunpowder by mistake. She loved the beauty of everything connected with the affair, but she was tired. It was queer how much more she could stand around home than when she was away. The work in the house, the care of the chickens and flowers, the whole responsibility of the home place was not so tiring as something unusual and out of the ordinary like this. It was nearly time to go to the church when there was a little movement outside the door and she heard Catherine's voice. "I want to see grandmother." The door opened and Catherine stood on the threshold in the exquisite whiteness of filmy lace, her eyes luminous, her face softened. My, Abby Deal raised her hands in admiration. "You take my breath away. You look like her, Kathy. But you're even lovelier." With a swift little movement of the short lacy skirt, Catherine was across the floor and down by her grandmother. She caught Abby Deal's wrinkled old hands in her firm young ones. "Granny, I wanted to see you a minute. You've not liked me a lot of times, I know. We've been miles apart most of the time. But I wanted to come in and tell you that nothing really counts but Jimmy. Oh, Granny, I'd go with Jimmy, just as you did with Grandfather. I'd live on pumpkin seeds, you know." She was laughing a little with moist eyes. "And dig a house in the side of a tree, just as you did. You know, all those things I've heard you tell about. Oh, heavens, I'm going to cry, and I'm all made up. But, Granny, I want you to know that after all, I'm just a lot of things you think I'm not. Oh, you won't understand." Abby Deal patted the lacy shoulders and with gentle old fingers touched the upturned face. "Why, of course, Kathy. Of course, dear. Grandma understands. The clock hands go round, and Grandma understands." The wedding was all that the wedding of the Mackenzie Deal's daughter would be, a thing of extravagant simplicity. There were beribboned pews, soft lights, and chaste white tapers in the silver candelabra against green palms. There was the organ's mellow voice and the rich contralto, one of the bride's aunt, Isabel Deal Rhodes, well-known Chicago singer. There was Mackenzie Deal with his bald head and his horn-rimmed glasses and a lump in his throat. There was Mrs. Mackenzie Deal in her orchid and silver lace, a little too concerned over the details of the affair to think of her emotions. There were all the Deal relatives, well-groomed and prosperous-looking. And there was old Abby Deal, sunk down low in the pew, the lavender silk dress with its lace collar from Vienna over her pudding-bag body, a knot of white hair at the nape of her neck, her tapering, gnarled fingers trembling with age in her lap. The bride was at the altar now, lovely Catherine, in her white lace and satin, with the heirloom of pearls around her neck. Old Abby's thoughts went over the cycle of 135 years. Satin and pearls in a Scottish mansion, a peasant dress and a head shawl in an Irish hut, a wine-colored hoop-skirt merino in a log cabin, a navy blue silk in a cottonwood and pine farmhouse, white lace and satin and the pearls again in their beautiful modern setting. Do you take this man? For better, for worse, death do you part. I do. The same solemn question solemnly answered. Would it be as faithfully kept, Abby wondered. And now it was all over. Catherine and Jimmy had left for the east. The big house had been quietly put to rights by two soft-footed maids. The whole Deal clan was gathering in the sunroom with its striking green and black and orchid English chintz hangings, and its fountain spraying over cool ferns and rocks. Emma was bustling about hospitably, seeing that everyone was comfortable. "Come on in, Donald. Sit here, Grace." Standing in the doorway, Abby heard Margaret coaxing Fred Jr.'s youngest son. with, "Come to Grandma, baby." It was still hard for Abby to remember that 2 of her children were grandparents. Then they saw her standing in the doorway. "Come in, Mother. Sit here, Mother." "No, over here, Mother." Mac brought a cushion, Isabella's stool. "Are you comfortable, Mother?" How they thought of her bodily comfort, always her physical needs. No one ever said, "Are you sad, Mother?" Or "How does your mind feel?" Or "Does anything hurt your heart?" Abby, sitting in the big ivory chair with the cushions at her back, found herself slipping away from the group, standing apart from it, looking at the members of it in a detached way. How efficient they all were, and how smart, and how easily they did things. They went hither and yon, either for business or pleasure affairs, into Chicago, down south, sometimes abroad. Mac now was saying something about going down to New York the last of the week. I had a chance. For the first time Abby Deal spoke. Her voice cracked a little because of its age. From the depths of the chair it cracked in its earnestness. I had a chance to go to New York once. Grace looked up quickly and then walked over to Isabel. She spoke very low and turned her head so that her mother might not hear. "See, that's what I've been telling you. I've noticed that in her quite a little lately. Just detached sentences like that with no special meaning. It would just kill me if her mind, at the last. But she does that quite often now. 'Well, well, the clock hands go round,' she'll say, right out of a clear sky. Or, 'Dear, dear, the winds blew it all away. And now this one, I had a chance to go to New York once.' Childish that way." In the big chair, Abby Deal was chuckling a little to herself, shaking with silent laughter. "What's the joke, Mother?" Mac spoke from across the room. "Nothing much. I was just wondering about all of you. Now, if I had gone." "See?" Grace was grave in her anxiety. "Like that." Abby Deal sat looking out at the family gathered there in the beautiful sun parlor, sat there with half-closed eyes like an old Buddha looking out on the generations. 80 years of living behind her. Most of them spent in fighting the droughts, the snows, the hot winds, the prairie fires, the blizzards. Fighting for the children's physical and mental and spiritual development. Fighting to make a civilization on the raw prairie. Bending her back to the toil, hiding her heart's disappointments, giving her all in service. She was like an old mother partridge who had plucked all the feathers from her breast for the nest of her young. Old Abby Deal, so near the borderland now that she held intercourse with both worlds, sat looking out through the half-closed eyes at the children and the grandchildren and the great-grandchildren. Well, Will, there they all are. What do you think of them? I did the best I could." "You did well, Abby girl."